Welcome everyone to another episode of the Ol'Timers Comic Book Show, the only place where the hosts aren't old, but the comics most certainly are. Excuse me, having a coughing attack as I said that. Okay, it's our regular show, therefore it wouldn't be the Ol'Timers if it wasn't for the Professor.
Hey, Johnny, we want you to get older.
Yeah, watching me dying. Oh my god. I took a swig of Coca-Cola before I started with the trailer, and then it just hit the wrong part. I was like, oh man, that's going to hurt. There we go. And of course, joining us on our Ol'Timers show, it is the 13th Crusader.
No, are you all choked up to have us here, Johnny?
Yeah, something like that. Something like that. So, shout outs around about now. This is our last show for a month. Dramatic pause there. So yeah, we'll have this show, and then we won't be back until the week commencing 28th of July. We're taking some time off. This will give us a chance to look back and see all the books that we've covered so far, and that way we don't have the usual Friday night panic of we've already covered this book. The 13th installs in us. Thank you, 13.
Mm-hmm.
You get scolded. We get scolded.
Yeah. We get like marks, like detention marks, and then we have to read books we don't like. So, with this being our final show for a little while, whilst we take a break over summer, I thought we'd do final issues. And when we talk about final issues, I don't mean like the end of a mini series or the end of a maxi series. Their final issues are already set in place. They're finite beings, they're finite runs, right? I'm talking about those kind of comic book runs that just come to an end and you think, what? When did that happen? Why do comic book runs come to an end? Why do we think, Professor?
Well, I think this covers the gambit, right? With our selections today, because there's a few reasons, right? One is obviously sales, right? People aren't buying the comic. Hey, canceled, right? There's reboots, right? So maybe one series comes to an end so another can start, right?
Yeah.
And then you get your comics that actually have a beginning, a middle, and an end, and they just come to an end because that's the natural life of the book. And I think we have all three of those today. There are probably other reasons, right? But yeah, I mean those are the big three. So
I agree with that. I think sales are definitely up there. Story, do you write yourself into a corner? That sort of stuff. Yeah, that's valid. 13th, we'll go with you first on this question, then we bounce it back to the Professor. Are there any comic book runs other than the ones we talked about today, of course, that you think, oh no, that was before its time, it's been cancelled too early?
Yeah, there's a lot of those, and I thought long and hard before this episode, like the Spider-Woman run, Rom, which we did cover once. The end of Rom was kind of depressing for me, because I didn't want it to end, but it did. I know, but still, you still have that base following for it.
That's an interesting point you bring up a Rom book, because Rom is what I call a quest book. Yeah, very much like the Battlestar Galactica TV show. They're on a quest to find something. Rom was on a quest to stop the dire wraiths. Galactica's trying to find Earth. Sooner or later, they've got to find them, right? That's the thing. You can't keep going on and on and on and on. So that's an interesting point with the Rom book for sure. Good call.
I thought of the original Captain Marvel too, and that was a character that really had a lot of development issues throughout the entire run, and eventually the character was killed off in a different book in a book that started another run, ironically.
Oh my god, I thought we were going to get some Omega the Unknown going on there, but never mind. Okay. Professor, for yourself, any books that kind of you think, oh?
Well, you know what a big fan of West Coast Avengers I am. I wish West Coast Avengers kept going instead of becoming Force Works and then just kind of getting buried.
Are we coming back? That reads where the West Coast is coming back.
Yeah, but I mean the books that are coming out today are nothing like what we were buying when we were kids. So I'm not really excited about anything coming out now. But West Coast Avengers was a big one that I was like, I had this.
Yeah.
That was the first book I've ever collected since issue 1, and now it's coming to an end. I don't like. We'll talk about reboots, I guess, but having Busiek and Perez's run. I mean, even though neither of them were on the book when it got rebooted, but to bring Bendis on and have him like just reboot everything, which I don't like reboots for creators. Just kind of continue the original numbering.
Yeah, I wanted to mention 2 more. So Power Man and Iron Fist were another one.
Yeah.
Okay.
When that one ended, and then on the DC side, the Legends of the Dark Knight, I was like, man, I thought this was going to keep going forever. That was another one too. That
was a great book.
That ended.
At least Early Dawson's a great book.
Right.
It's because it was agreed to like rotating creative teams,
Yeah, and it was before Batman was Bat-God, so it was a case of he's still learning his way. But again, set in a finite time, sooner or later, young Batman has to morph into mature Batman at some point, right?
Yeah.
And then, of course, the events came in, and then we crossed over, so make it a contemporary book, which then it was just a normal Bat book after that. It didn't have its same panache.
Yeah.
So,
Some of these runs end because the competition. So if they are only going to publish a certain amount of titles, they're going to have to maybe cut somewhere in order to put something else out there to compete with a rival publisher.
I think it's a good shout. I think the one that kind of sticks in my craw a little bit, and we've talked about the book before, Star Wars, the Marvel Star Wars run, the first volume. I thought that was brilliant right up until the point they released Return of the Jedi. And then you could see the ideas just go, it fell off.
Because they were kind of like, now what?
Yeah, exactly. It wouldn't be until Dark Horse resurrected the idea, and then Marvel were bought by the House of Mouse, that they decided they can go back and retroactively do stuff.
Yeah.
In the current books, they've introduced Poe Dameron's parents and so on and so forth. High Republic's a great book, or it was when it started. So all these things didn't happen organically for Marvel the first time around. And same with, I suppose, the Star Trek book set after the Search for Spock by DC. I love that, written by Peter David. Lots of great ideas in it. But again, had a great big massive reset button that you had to put the guys back on Vulcan so the new movie could come on from that. So yeah, so I think there's again lots of reasons. But yeah, sales, end of story, competition, that sort of thing. I'm trying to think. I quite liked Action Comics when it was the weekly version, and you got like the run of stories, but I'm not sure that counts as a final issue. I don't know.
Oh, well, no, really, because it continued numbering the next month with a different format. So,
yeah, I suppose. All right, then. Fair enough. We'll go with our first book then for today. It is the 13th Crusaders choice. I saw this back in the UK in a Spider-Man Weekly comic reprint. I think at the time it was Spider-Man and Zoids Weekly. Don't ask me why we do
Zoids.
Do you not remember Zoids?
I do, the mechanical dinosaurs, right?
Yeah. All right, so this is Marvel Team Up 150 from February 85. eBay, you can get this from around 99 pence, but normally goes for around a $5. Check the grades. Go Collect has a grade 9 at $34. It's written by Louise Simonson, or Simonson, depending on the pronunciation. Greg LaRocque is on art. Mike Esposito's inks. Janice Chiang is on letters. And Bob Sharrett is on colours. What do we think of the awful Barry Windsor Smith cover? Well,
we know what you think of it.
Please don't spoil it for us, Machine.
Yeah, I'm just saying. Some artists suit certain characters. I don't think Barry Windsor Smith suits any of these. But that's just a me thing. All right. And you know how much I love Barry Windsor anyway, so that's cool. 13th, this is your choice. Would you like to take it away?
Yeah, and I'll disagree with you on the cover only for the sole purpose of that I felt that it was appropriate for a final issue with the pose and whatnot. And my first thought of when this run ended was like, oh no, why?
That is a good question. Spider-Man was hugely popular back then.
Yep.
Correct. And not only that, he's teaming up with the X-Men, who were still enjoying the benefits of all the popularity that they had just a few years prior to this, with the Dark Phoenix saga among one of those things. But Um, I always envisioned this book, or I always treated it as the town square book for Marvel, because you have probably your most popular character in Spider-Man teaming up with somebody new every issue,
Mhm.
but with it, you're getting a different cast of characters or a character, and then you're getting recaps. So this was very much tied into continuity. It was a
Mhm.
great place to come to, like, oh, I missed that part. Let me
Mhm.
go get that issue. So Spider-Man had his hands in pretty much everything, and even if he didn't, the the creative team will let you know, like, hey, in case you missed this, go
Mhm.
check this out, or this event, as you will see in this book. There are a lot of things that were tied to this book, and with it, you still had a story, and that's what I liked about Marvel Team Up. It was a great chance,
Mhm.
like I said, a town square, to find out what's going on, but also to see characters you might not normally read about.
Mhm.
In this case, I think they ended this run in a very good way, I guess, with the X-Men and Spider-Man. You couldn't go wrong at this time and age um,
Mhm.
with these Marvel properties. But and then somehow they spun it to kind of coincide with the regular Spider-Man titles, like
Yeah.
Amazing Spider-Man and Peter Parker, the Spectacular Spider-Man. So um, there was plenty of Spider-Man to go around. And what I liked about some of these stories, or at least for the most part, it felt like self-contained stories, but yet stories that could kind of continue the next issue,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. And I think that with this issue, that was the end of an era for
Mm.
Spider-Man as far as teaming up with other characters.
Didn't this book was replaced by Web of Spider-Man though, right?
Yes,
Is that a fair assumption?
it
Yep.
is not an assumption; it's fact.
That is
Mhm.
fact, right? That's what happened. This got cancelled. So this
Yeah.
wasn't like a sales thing, because if it was a sales thing, then Web of Spider-Man wouldn't be around.
Well,
Is it
the,
is
the
it an
sales.
idea? Is it an idea thing that they don't like Spider-Man mixing up with everybody? Because 13's right. There is a lot of continuity in this book.
The sales thing was the fact that Marvel just kind of thought that there wasn't enough shelf space for more than 4 Spider-Man books, or
Oh,
5 if
that
you
would
count the
change.
reprint book that was coming out, Marvel
That would
Tales.
change in a hurry.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I mean, it changed later on, but I mean, this is what 1986.
I
Yeah.
always felt too that with Web of Spider-Man was a change in direction in a way for Spider-Man,
Yes, spot on.
whereas Marvel Team Up at times could be a little campy,
Yep.
whereas Web kind of took it to the it turned things up a notch.
Yeah, definitely. The whole stuck in the psychiatric ward,
Correct.
following the episodes of the Craven last hunt.
Right.
Oh, these two stories dovetail to give you an idea that what Spider-Man isn't always smiles and grins. So that's
Right.
Web was still the third Spidey book.
oh yeah.
So
Yeah. There's no question about that. But again, the end of an era. So in this book, to put it in a nutshell, it's Spider-Man again one more time going up against the Juggernaut, and the book clearly tells you, where he's fought Juggernaut before and why.
Mm-hmm.
And the premise of the book is pretty simple. Spider-Man is on a mission to earn enough money to buy Aunt May a birthday gift. Juggernaut is trying to get a birthday gift for his best friend in Black Tom Cassidy. And it's funny, but yet they made a story out of this. And then they brought Spider-Man and Juggernaut back together again. And if you didn't get enough of that within Amazing, in the pages of Amazing, well, here you are in a Marvel Team Up book. But this time, Spider-Man has help when the Juggernaut gets the ruby crystal Sidorak, if that's how you call it, and
That's how
shares
I
his
pronounce
power
it.
with Black Tom. So it's a lot for Spider to handle, but the X-Men do come in. You're not getting the classic X-Men lineup.
No.
You're basically getting Nightcrawler, Rogue, Colossus, and Rachel Summers, which is okay. It serves its purpose for this book. So you're getting an adventure of another tussle with Spider-Man, the X-Men, Juggernaut, and Black Tom. So I enjoyed it for what it was. I do like the artwork in here. It is
Mm-hmm.
classic Marvel for this era. Pretty defined characters.
Agreed.
Backgrounds mostly finished, something that you don't really see these days.
Yeah.
Everything pretty much made sense. Everything took place in New York as usual. So at this point in time, there's nothing in here that's really going to surprise you. It's just a pretty much clear-cut adventure with Spidey and the X-Men versus
Yeah.
these two villains.
It's a solid book. I've got to say. I was rereading this morning, and I had a daft grin on my face. It is a solid read. For me, back in the day, this was the first introduction to Rogue for me. I hadn't seen it in the X-Men up until this point.
Yeah, she was still fairly new, and not everybody knew the extent of her abilities.
So her outfit dates her somewhere around the 180s to 200s in Uncanny X-Men. Probably about the 190, 195, if I'm honest. But Professor, what do you think of this book?
I thought it was great. I mean, 13, you said almost everything I was going to say. I think you heard me. Did you see me nodding every time you said something? I'm like, oh, I was going to bring that up. We remember the look of Spider-Man back in the 80s. This was just that's what I liked about, like, even though there were multiple Spider-Man books, any book you picked up, they all looked like this. So that you could pick up Marvel Team Up and you kind of get the same feel, before artistic styles changed when McFarlane jumped on the book and then everything started looking different. But the Spider-Man had a look that you expected when you picked up a Spider-Man book. I thought Marvel Team Up filled a niche in the Marvel universe that really hasn't been filled since this book got canceled. They've tried 100 other times to relaunch Marvel Team Up and it never worked. This was the book. We had Spider-Man, and every month you could have a rotating character come in and Spider-Man was the Marvel universe. So it was everybody's introduction to characters that they might not necessarily read. And I love, like, Johnny, you brought it up earlier about how you could have that rotating different guest star in the same storyline. So if you had Vision in one issue, you knew next issue this team up was going to be Scarlet Witch, right? And then from Scarlet Witch you could have the next issue could be Quicksilver or something like that. So you could have all these characters. And I thought, this particular book, X-Men, and we'll talk about it in your pick too, Johnny. X-Men kind of existed in a vacuum back Claremont's run, where they weren't really crossing over with a bunch of other characters. They were just doing their own thing. And so for you to be able to see X-Men team up with Spider-Man was not something that you saw every day, even though they did bring it up here. That Spider-Man handed the X-Men their ass in Secret Wars, which they never bring that stuff up anymore. But to be able to even see, and these are at this point in time, these are the lesser known X-Men, right? There's no Wolverine in this issue. Surprise, surprise.
Well, he wasn't the star back then. Not quite.
He was just on the cusp. He was on the cusp.
I'll give you that. He was on the cusp. But
yeah.
They hadn't had the Storm Cyclops fight for the leadership yet.
Right.
At this point.
Yeah. One of the things that was depressing with the cover, going back to that, is the corner box. And
I love the corner box. The corner box works. It was brilliant.
Yeah, I was like, that made me very depressed because I'm like, oh man, they're not. The cover says it all. The last Marvel team up. Then you see the corner box, and then now a moment's silence. I'm like, okay, it really is coming to an end, unfortunately, because I really thoroughly enjoyed this entire run.
I think team up books like this, there's some good and there's some bad, but the bad's still pretty good. It's like cold pizza. I think there's some standout issues. The Spider-Man Captain Britain 2-parter with Murder World, spot on. The Black Widow leading into Black Widow Nick Fury around 83, 84, spot on.
The annuals were great too.
I do sometimes feel very much the same way of Brave and the Bold over in DC, that the connection or the reason can be a little bit far-fetched. Maybe not so much in this one as Brave and the Bold, but there is elements of, like, what was the guy? Is it Stingray, the white dude with the white suit and the Spider-Man and Stingray team up? Why is Spider-Man anywhere near the water? It's like, what? Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
Doesn't that lead into like a Submariner team up or something? It had to be, right?
Again, well, why? Why is everybody doing that? You know, it's like,
It's fun.
but what makes it? See, the Mister talk about synergy of storytelling. They missed an absolute peach of an idea because it wasn't that long after this that they moved Peter Parker around the country promoting the Webb's book that he took. Yeah. Now that would have been a perfect example, a perfect time for Spider-Man to mix it up with different heroes around the country. But no. It's like, just so happens on the one day I go to the beach, I get attacked by a stingray. Killing me.
You know, this is when Marvel was really fun. You know, when Spider-Man everybody knew Spidey and the Thing, right? Marvel 2-in-1 was the other team-up book that didn't really actually got canceled a bit before the Marvel team-up.
My favorite parts of the book are also continuity laden, and it's the girls on the rooftop. They make more than one appearance. Not because I'm just about the girls, but I just like the idea of them. You know, there they are, sunbathe New York. Oh no, Spider-Man can't get out. Oh, what's going to do? And they make a number of appearances.
It's like, is that like Brandy, Randy, and Candy or something?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah,
Randy, Bambi, and Candy.
Yeah, I think that's cool. I'm a little bit. If I'm going to be that guy, I'm confused how Juggernaut managed to put on like the skull cap to protect his head. Sorry, when the thing gets pulled off, because I thought the armor was created mystically. So therefore, how did he create the skull cap? That's the idea of why it protects him against psionic blasts. I don't know.
He's had his helmet ripped off before.
Okay, yeah. But how do you get the skull cap on? That's what I'm saying. You just normally take the suit of armor off. So yeah. And didn't you have it riveted on at one point to stop it getting taken? I don't know. It's like trying to know this is what the flaw of my plan is, but I'll try and get around it. Good scene. I think this is Rogue just after she joined the X-Men. So I didn't know who she was. I didn't know who Rachel was back at the time. Some of the art is a bit kooky. That panel there is not particularly good, but the rest of it is absolutely spot on. And I felt, as I said, I read this book. I had a daft grin on my face. Yeah. What can I say? A book of its time for sure, but it is a good, fun book. It's reasonably cheap. Yeah, it's reasonably cheap, so you can pick this up. It's not going to cost you an arm and a leg. So,
yeah, I think, like I said, this run is a great introduction for the novice comic book reader back at this time. You know, this whole run, if you're really not familiar with anyone else, rather than read it in an encyclopedic version like Marvel Universe Handbook, you can actually see the characters in action and pretty much see the way that these characters were intended to be.
I find it funny. I agree with you. I do find it funny that Black Tom and Juggernaut just decide to leave the fight. Like, yeah, okay, fine, I'm done. And off they go. And like the good guy's like, yay, we won. I'm like, did you though? Did you really? Did you?
I've seen a lot of Juggernaut fights in that way, where he just gets bored and walks away.
Did you though? Did you really?
Yeah, that helmet coming off is not only in comic books, but it's also been done in animation with the X-Men. So, yeah, because he says he's unstoppable, and they pretty much make him that way. And then this is the only way to kind of slow him down.
He needs an iceberg. Oh wait, that's unsinkable, not unstoppable. I always get the two mixed up. Time for an advert for one of our other shows before we move on to our next book. Anybody have anything else to say before we move on? Nope. Anything?
No, I'm still sad, but I'm good.
Oh, okay. Oh well, maybe this will cheer you up. Time for a crisis. There you have it. Crisis of the Toyverse with Bobo. Check it out for all your figures and statues news.
Hey.
Excellent. Right. Before we get on to our next book, it's time to talk about the rules of the show. The rules of the show stipulate that books have to be 25 years or older. Now, I fell afoul of this myself, so please don't think this is me picking on anyone in particular. Because I wanted to go with the Birds of Prey book, which came out in 2007, so my maths was way out. However, our friend, the professor, has wanted to talk about Preacher for so long. And this is the final issue of the book, came out in September. What did I say it was?
2000.
2000.
Yeah, we
So
missed
it's
the
a
cutoff.
couple of months. Now, could I be that guy and say, on your bike, pick another book? No, of course I'm not. There we go. We'll let the rules be damned today for a couple of months. This is Preacher 66. Ironically, I would have loved it if it was Preacher 666, but that's a different story. From September 2000, as we mentioned, eBay. It's not an expensive book. You can get this for around £3.50. Go collect. Have a grade 9 at only $5. So that's impressive. A
That is
9.6 will
impressive.
cost you 47. So I mean, you're talking 0.6 of a grade. I don't know. That's like I don't know what, a minor spine roll perhaps. You know, it's still super readable. It's Preachers, so it's written by Garth Ennis, art by Steve Dillon, colors by Pamela Rambo. That is a great surname. You know, I wonder if
Rambo.
I wonder if she drew First Blood. Clem Robbins is on letters. I don't normally shout this out, but did you notice who the editor was?
I didn't. Who's the editor?
Is it Alexis Alonso?
Oh, Alex Alonso.
Alonso?
Yeah,
Yeah.
he was, and he left DC to go be the editor in chief of Marvel for a little
There
while.
you go. There you go.
Yeah.
See? Yeah, ta-da.
He was the one that was, I don't want to say guilty of instituting the kind of progressive thinking of Marvel these days, but
But he was. All right. Okay. Cool.
he was. Yeah.
He was.
So
this is your book, Professor.
yeah,
You
and
love
and
Preacher,
I
so-
want to thank you both for indulging me with this issue. We were talking final issues, and at the time I did select this. You know, we knew we were going to take a break, so I really wanted to. You know, discuss this last issue, and I apologize. I didn't know this came out past the date, but
a couple of months between friends.
yeah, but you know,
It's only time.
the three of us know. I mean, we talk. I mean, God, we have a podcast that we talk about old comics. So I mean, we all have this deep ingrained passion for comics, and especially well told stories with consistent artwork that really kind of transform the way that you may think of comics before you start reading this particular book. This was that book for me. And there was a lot of stuff going on personally at the time. I discovered Preacher late in the run, probably about halfway through was when I first picked up my first issue, and then tried to scramble to find the rest of them because I loved it so much. And it really was, you know, prior to Preacher, I was superheroes, and this was kind of a hybrid book, right? It was had some kind of super heroic elements, but for the most part, not very heroic, right? And it was a relationship book between the main characters, Jesse, Tulip, and Cassidy, and then the fringe characters that keep turning up in the books. But this book for me, I grew up Catholic. I don't know, believe it or not. I grew up
Boston Catholic. How did I not know that?
Boston Catholic, yeah, and I was an altar boy when I was growing up, and I was disillusioned with the church, so I stopped going, and but I still have this spiritual belief, and at this point in time was difficult for me when I was questioning everything. My dad was dying of cancer. He died shortly before this book came to an end. And that's why I wanted to talk about this book, because it really kind of gives a little bit of explanation to where my head was at the time, where I was just angry about everything and questioning everything. And that's what this book did, was just question everybody's religious beliefs, poked fun at it, and just kind of made you realize almost the absurdity of it all, but also kind of gave you maybe a little bit of hope, or I mean, maybe not really from reading this issue, but came from for
No,
like.
no. I think there's some hope in here. I
Yes,
mean,
but
these two
hope,
characters.
because hope is inside you, right?
Yeah.
It's not outside. Here they actually give embodiment to God and actually give him form, and he actually, at this point, reading this issue, the feeling that I had towards God at the time when I was reading this book, I thought it was a pretty cool ending, because I felt like the Saint of Killers at the time, and that I wanted rest, and I wanted to have vengeance on the Creator, and that to me, to read this book and just to have the consistency of all 66 issues, with the relationships between the characters, the consistency in the writing, and the characters are the same throughout, that they go on this journey and they change, and they're not the same at the end that they are at the beginning. This is one of the only books I've ever read in its entirety that I was completely and totally satisfied with the ending and the end of the journeys of the characters. And this issue itself, rereading this issue this morning, and just like, I didn't remember that the book was filled with letters that the characters wrote each other. And it was perfect, right? Because it hit on what happened before, it hit why it happened, and it hit the ending point of, this is what changed me as a character, and this is how I'm going to act going forward. And to me, the ending with Cassidy, even Jesse doesn't know. Jesse doesn't know Cassidy survived at the end, and he never finds out, because this is the end. This is the end of Preacher. There's never been any more in 25 years. We've never gotten any more Preacher stories. We're not gonna. And to me, that was a perfect ending.
24 years, Professor.
24 years and some months. Yeah, I apologize.
That's fine.
I'm rounding up. I can't begin to explain how this book affected me as a young man, and made me think differently. And we all know that comics can affect everyone differently, and that's why we read them, right? We read them for escapism. We read them to kind of sanctuary, right? And this book was my sanctuary, but also my thoughts on it helped me try to explain to myself the reason things happen in real life. So
a sanctuary of the soul, some would say.
It was, and it it doesn't hurt that the story was so great and consistently great throughout the run, with one vision from one creator and one artistic vision from one artist. And it was it's one of these books, and I can't wait till we get to of course, maybe we won't break the rules anymore for me, but there are some other books that I'd love to talk about that we can't, because it's not in the time frame. But this is one of them. And I'm glad this everybody knows this show is made into an AMC TV series. I went for years thinking that they could never ever possibly adapt this, and they did a good job over there too. But I mean, the comic is still today very, very readable and stands the test of time.
Cool. Well said. Well described. Thank you so much for that. Impassioned. I've got to admit, it's not a book that I've read a ton of. So coming into the last issue, I was a little bit worried. 13, what's your viewpoint on Preacher?
Pretty much the same as you, except that where's the credit to the letterer?
Yeah, Clem Robbins, didn't it? I think I gave.
Yeah, there's a ton of lettering in here, a lot of words. I'll definitely say that. But I do like the cover, and I won't add too much to what the professor said. But one thing's for sure, and one can make the argument that for an imprint book in Vertigo for DC, Vertigo was strong enough, I think, to stand on its own.
Agreed.
Like, there's so much, not just mature content, but it's just everywhere. They gave you superheroes, they gave you crime, they gave you supernatural, paranormal. The range was just unlimited, and then the stories that they delivered were very impactful. There's no doubt about that, and even to this day, even some of my friends still say, like, I'm still trying to go after Vertigo books. And I can comfortably say that I don't think this will ever be matched again. When Vertigo existed in that time frame, that was pretty much it. So that's the bad news. It did end. The good news is that now you know the years that these books came out, and you can go back and hunt them and read them, collect them and read them from beginning to end and enjoy them. So I've never really heard of anybody saying anything bad about Vertigo books, and for the Vertigo books that I have read, I will concur with that. Preacher, unfortunately, I don't have much knowledge on, but it is something that I do want to make the rounds to, just because of the reputation of Vertigo, and I think that speaks for itself. And this is a very good thing for DC at this time, competing with everybody else, even independents. So, like Bud said, this became a TV show. So there's been a lot of Vertigo properties. Like look at today, Sandman, Lucifer's had a show. So there has been some. Yep, there's been some mining going on with the Vertigo line even to this day. So its impact on comics is definitely there. It's definitely powerful.
Good call. What was I going to say? Right. Okay. So this book for me, as I said early doors, I have absolutely no idea what's going on in this book. That said, I absolutely read this book, felt the emotions of the characters all the way through, and that's a credit to Garth Ennis' writing, who has managed to get me to care about two characters that I've only just met today, practically. I think that's the strength of this book. It then goes to challenge, as Professor mentioned, challenge your belief in, or non-belief, for most of my case, to be honest, in a religious idea. And again, that's a good thing. It challenges you. It doesn't preach, ironically, to you about what you should be or what you shouldn't be. It just tells you, this is this, make up your own mind. Do you think that the guy that kills God's a good guy or a bad guy? Do you think it's good that he's there or not there? How, and all these sort of questions. Why do we have to have a God? Why do we have to have religion? And so on, stem from books like this. I agree with the 13th Crusader in that Vertigo, we say all the time, was of its time. DC have given up the ghost on this, and that has led to the proliferation of some fantastic indie books who have picked up the mantle and challenged readers every month, every week, with a range of books from high-end sorcery to religion and everything in between. So if you want to know or understand where today's current indie market came from, it's from books like Preacher. It's like books like Animal Man, Swamp Thing, these sort of things. So when we talk about these books and Preacher's 66 issues, that's not a lot. That's only just over 5 years worth of books. Yeah. The impact of the great storytelling is evident. The impact of the art, because it's character based, is there, and the impact that it had on comic books as a whole, as part of the Vertigo range, is massive as well. So I think if you are looking to look for something that's a little bit more, I don't want to say mature because you can get mature superhero books. If you're looking for something that's a little bit more thought provoking than Cape and Cowl, then you know what you wouldn't do yourself any misjustice by picking up Preacher. It is a relatively affordable book, so go out and pick up the back issues. I have to say to Professor, thank you so much for sharing so much of your personal story on this, and thank you so much for picking this book, man. This is an absolute blast. Thank you so much.
If I can make, if I can inspire someone to pick this book up and read it, then I highly recommend it.
Wow, there you go.
They just came out last year with 3 different absolute volumes for Preacher that you can see on my bookcase behind me. Fantastic books in a slipcase hardcover edition for, I mean, it's not inexpensive, but worth it if you want an oversized reprint, beautiful glossy pages, and a lot of good extras in there too. So.
Oh, yeah, I should have mentioned the extras. There are extras in the final issue. I haven't shown a lot of the images because it is a mature book. There is some nudity in there. So some great creators on there also. You've got a Brian Bolland piece. You've got Amanda Connor in there. So it's all within the. When I say there's nudity, that means people think, it's all within the confines of the story. So the pieces are of the story. They're not just there for like, woo, check it out. Yeah. But yeah, cool. Excellent. All right. So from the sublime to the ridiculous, which is pretty much how my choice always seems to go. Ta-da! Hey, Miss Marvel. Oh,
it's
my
not a ridiculous book.
Really? Really? In comparison to Preacher.
Oh, I mean, come on. Preacher's a different animal, but
yeah.
No, go ahead.
And also 24 years old.
Sorry?
This one is definitely older.
Yeah, well, it's true.
I guess someone's going to stick with that. I suppose with someone with a number in the title is going to be a bit officious about numbers, to be sure. All right, so this is Miss Marvel 23 from April 79. eBay, depending on grade, you can get this for as little as £7.50 all the way up to £30. Go collect, have a grade 9 at $55, rising at 75 for a 9.6. I own this book. In fact, I own the entirety of this run. It's one of my pearls of my collection. I love this era of Marvel, and I've said that many times. So it's written by Chris Claremont, taking a break from his X stuff. Mike Vosberg is on art in a very, I suppose, mature way compared to what we'd seen previously on this book. Inks are by some bloke called Bruce D. I've done some research. I couldn't find out who he is. But it's credited as Diane A, which is Albers on letters, and George R is George Russos on colours. The cover, has to be mentioned, is by X-Men stalwart and Miss Marvel costume designer Dave Cockrum. There you go. I've got to say, who doesn't love a character that speaks to herself all the time? It's like she never shuts up. It's like, is she still half Cree and she doesn't know it? Is she talking to her id? What's going on?
No, she likes Spider-Man, but with word bubbles instead of thought balloons.
It's like, oh my god! And doesn't the boyfriend look like Chris Claremont? Is that what they're trying to prove there? Is this yeah.
Interesting.
Chris Claremont and Carol, Susan and Susan Danvers sitting in a tree. Okay, I guess that's how it is. All right, so the story goes: one of Carol's friends rocks up in dire needs of whatever. You get a bit of a flashback of how they know each other, which is also a bit of a recap of Miss Marvel and the original suit. From there on in, friends turns enemies and she gets blasted. Kidnapped onto a space station. Her friend turns into some sort of, I don't know, gold-plated, I don't know, what is it, Barbarella-esque thing. Um, and the faceless one is there asking, promising to turn Carol into a mindless slave. And before you know it, things get a bit hectic. Things get a bit. How dresses get torn like that, I have no idea. But before you can say Alakazam, Miss Marvel rocks up and teams up with Ventastro to take down the faceless one. I'll say this now. I love this book. I love this book. I love this entire run. It does scream of the uncertainty of how to deal with Miss Marvel, because her adventures seem to be a lot like this. There doesn't seem to be any sort of like long-term rhyme or reason. I know Claremont was building up the backstory of Carol and the parents from Boston, and she becomes alcoholic later on, and all that sort of stuff. But at this point, just seems to be bad guy of the month type of storytelling. There doesn't seem to be much of an ongoing element to it, which I think spoils the idea of the character. She is super powerful, even here. But I liked it. I thought it was okay for what it was. It's a book from the late 70s. You know, what do you expect? I thought the art was dynamic enough without being over the top, considering she's wearing thigh highs and a swimsuit. That would change, of course, down the line. Did we ever find out who the faceless one was, Professor?
No, the faceless one is just a run-of-the-mill villain. He first appeared in Tales to Astonish, like that's not even like pre-Marvel. He was in Tales to Astonish one time. So yeah.
See, if they made this someone like, I don't know, like the Supreme Intelligence using it as a facade to try and get Carol, that would make more sense.
Hey, I don't know.
But no, it wouldn't. But no, that would just have a faceless person who can get rid of next, and so on and so forth.
He's Mysterio's father.
Yeah, yeah. I can't find my goldfish bowl. I'll use this gold one instead. But no, I thought for what this book was, I thought it was a really interesting, a really fun read. This is, of course, this book was cancelled from the sales element. We know that, for we interviewed Chris Claremont years ago, and I asked the question, what happened to it? And it was like, oh, it just wasn't selling. I can see why. If you think about the dangling plots, it just didn't go anywhere. But there are 2 issues after this that you can find in Marvel Superheroes Volume 2, issues 10 and 11. Thank you for 13th for providing that information. I'm already watching number 10 on eBay. I'm not telling you how much it is. I'm not having you lot bid against me.
You might want to check again.
Why? Is it
I just put a bid.
Oh, really? Okay.
No, I wouldn't do that to you.
So I think Miss Marvel, from this point, she joins the Avengers, so she still gets some airtime, and of course, we all know what happens to her after that. But no, I enjoyed this book. I thought it was fun. Some of the art a little bit Sal Buscema, and not Sal, the other one, John Buscema, especially the Salia type of character with the way she's drawn, reminds me kind of a little bit like his artwork in places. But other than that, yeah, I enjoyed it. I thought it was okay. Cool. Professor.
That bra can't be comfortable. But anyway. Just some inconsistency in the art. I mean, just on this page, you're looking at Vance Astro's face mask is miscolored in several ways. Especially after that they were talking about if his suit's breached, he ages 1,000 years in a second, and then they color his face mask wrong. I was just like, come on. What are we doing? But no, I loved this book. We always talk about if it's of its time, but this whole Ms. Marvel run is really of its time. But I love the fact that Chris Claremont loves Ms. Marvel so much, that he incorporates her in the X-Men and kind of takes over the character, fixes her after Jim Shooter screwed her up in Avengers, and then it goes on to here at the end. And of course, I'll talk about the final 2 issues in the Marvel superheroes, but just basically goes back and explains and actually gives you the panel for panel Rogue Ms. Marvel fight with, which
Avengers Annual
we kind of
10.
got. We kind of got as like recap in Avengers Annual number 10, and we were like, when did this happen? It was, it never actually did happen on panel. So I liked those stories. I liked the fact that Chris Claremont tried to introduce some of the characters, like Mystique first appears in Ms. Marvel.
She does.
Destiny first appears in Ms. Marvel, I believe, and then
Deathbird.
Deathbird. Yeah, there's a bunch of cool characters that Chris Claremont actually says these are all mine. These are all now X-Men stuff, and that's actually what we were talking about before about X-Men or Chris Claremont kind of operating in a vacuum. This was kind of like a bridge book, right? I mean, this is like, hey, Ms. Marvel kind of belongs to both worlds. You can have on one page she's interacting with Iron Man, or the Avengers, or some of the Spider-Man, and then the next minute she's got Sabretooth or Mystique or some of the other X-Men villains typically that you would see. So I like the fact that she kind of ends up belonging to both worlds, and anytime you see Carol in an X book, I think it's hey. She belongs there. She belongs in both books. I love the character.
Yeah, cool. Me too. Excellent. 13. Round us off.
Yeah, like you, I do own this run as well, and unfortunately, it did see its demise in issue 23. And it wasn't until 13 years later that they decided to say, "Hey, you know what? Let's publish what was finished, what was already done back in '79." In the pages of Marvel Superheroes, like you guys were already saying. And then with the intended issue 25, that was the one where they had to hire another creative team to finish it up, plus give you a recap. As we all know what happened to Ms. Marvel. To me, I've liked the character from this era, despite what happened to her. And even afterwards, I did like the character, even through, like, I would say the Avengers third volume. After that, I lost interest. I still like what I said earlier about the original Captain Marvel, where they were struggling to kind of figure out what to do with that character. I think kind of the same thing kind of befell Carol Danvers at this time. She did come from the pages of the Captain Marvel books, and she was completely different than what she was in this run. At least this run gave her personality, and you could see that getting stronger with each issue. Her powers were still not really defined until well after the fact of the incident with Rogue. So she still had not reached her upper limits. It's a good run. It's a small run. It's not impossible to go and find. It didn't take me long to put the run together. It is a good read, and it's kind of like how do you want to say for Claremont? If you don't know anything about Claremont's X-Men, this is a good run to kind of look into, to kind of get it, a feel for Claremont's writing and plot. You can see that he was going somewhere with it, but unfortunately, it just hit the end of the road.
Well, and Claremont loves strong women characters, and he tried to create Carol here, and he did. I think he did more for Carol in the few issues that he did to kind of promote that, her being basically independent, happy in her own skin, not looking for approval from the male characters in the book. In fact, the male characters are very much treated like any female character in, like, Spider-Man. Like the love interest that no one really gives a crap about.
Yeah, she was proven to be a versatile character and still is to this day.
Yeah.
And as you said, she can interact in the Avengers world, the X-Men world, or on her own. So that's really good for a character. Unfortunately, they pulled the plug in more ways than one, with not just the run, but with the character overall.
Yep.
And I think that I treat it like the Beatles song that came out, that they had a recording of John Lennon and made a new song out of it with a little help from AI. So it's the same thing here, where the creative team in '79 did have an ending for this, and then another creative team just said, okay, now it's coming to a screeching halt. Now we're going to explain Rogue, and that was the end of that.
The you mentioned about the run. The run is well, over here. It's tricky to find. The Mystique issue is the highest priced one.
Yeah.
Is that 18 or 19? Something
Yeah,
like
18.
That. 18.
16 as Raven Darkholme. She doesn't appear as Mystique until 2 issues later.
So so I finished this run off last year, so I was quite pleased with that.
I'll tell you what, I thoroughly enjoyed Ms. Marvel versus the Hellfire Club.
Yeah.
In the Marvel superheroes.
Yes.
I loved that battle. And the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants as well.
Yeah.
The Mystique version.
It's interesting. Things get a little bit more cheesecake in that than you'd expect it to. I don't think that would have happened in 1979. That's fine. There you go. Excellent. So 3 final issues of different, I suppose, different tone for you to enjoy. Final issues are a bit of a bittersweet experience, and it's the end of something that you really, really loved before moving on to the next round. There is no bittersweet with us. We will be back. We are just taking a break. We will be back at the end of July. We're taking a much needed break so we can get things sorted, ready for when we return. We are planning a certain game show upon our return, of which we will look to incorporate other hosts from around the UCPN network.
So we all realize that we're not quite as smart as we think we are.
I'm going to do it in teams. I've decided we're going to do it on teams. That's what we'll do. We'll split you and me up, so it's like, because we're the Ol'Timers, and then we'll put like a young pup with each of us and see how we get on. Or unless we decide to Professor and I just decide to wipe the floor with people.
I don't know. I think that's challenging 13th Crusader a little bit.
I would like to. What's he going to do? Invite a comic book guest on and just have like 3 rounds about that person? Nah, he wouldn't do that.
No, not this time.
Not again.
We can have Chris Claremont on and ask him all his X-Men questions.
We should really reach out, see if he wants to be on, because I know he's done our shows before.
Yeah, well.
Oh, that's a thought. Anyway, that's what we're planning for when we come back. So we are not resting on our laurels. So far, it's been an absolute brilliant ride. This show is my favorite show by far. It's my favorite comic book hour of the whole week. So, Professor, thank you so much for continuing to support the show and be here every week. 13.
Nowhere else I'd rather be, Johnny.
Bless you. 13, thank you for the effort, sir.
Of course, and you ain't seen nothing yet with the Jeopardy I'm cooking up.
Oh, my God.
I'm afraid. I have anxiety right now.
Hey, listen, I'll give you a hint. It's any comic book from 1939 until 25 years ago.
Oh, Christ.
So Preacher 66 isn't in there then?
No.
No,
but I'm thinking more than just Marvel or DC. I'm like, oh, you're gonna break out the faucet. Oh, it's true.
Bring out the TMNT.
Oh, jeez.
Oh, dear God. All right, there you go. Enjoy your summer break. I know we will. It's been a blast having you around for the last episodes. As I said, we are back later in July, so don't touch that dial. Still listen to all the shows that you get on the UCPN, and we will be back shortly. I've been your host, Johnny the Machine Hughes, and as always, adios.